out tonight. Really excited to have our Startup Grind event here at Brandeis with the Brandeis Innovation Center. And so basically Startup Grind's a global organization of startup networking events. There's 400 different chapters around the world. And every month here in Boston, we host a fireside chat event. Sometimes we also do additional like parties and happy hours and just a chance for the local community to come together. And yeah, all of our events, we're looking to learn from experienced entrepreneurs, CEOs and investors, and have them share their stories and give us lessons that we can all use in our own startups. So yeah, really excited, and wanted to introduce Christina, who helped put this together at through Brandeis.
Well, welcome everybody, if you're not a Brandeisian, to Brandeis University, and welcome everybody from Brandeis to the Startup Grind event. My name is Christina. I do the communications for the Brandeis Innovation Center. And like Startup Grind, we have a bunch of great events for people interested in entrepreneurship. We have coming up a great pitch event. Hands up everybody here who watches Shark Tank and either loves or hates it. Awesome. So we have something much better than that. We have something called Spark Tank, which is one of the only startup competitions on any university campus anywhere where faculty, staff, and students compete as equals for $50,000 in funding for their startup ideas. And that's coming up on February 3rd. And so you guys are all going to receive an email as a follow-up, which is going to have a link to that, but you can also go to brandeis.edu/innovation, where you can find out about all of our great programs. We're very proud that we have provided over $500,000 in funding, support, thousands of hours, about 3,000 hours in mentorship to startups based here at Brandeis. So we're very proud of that. So again, brandeis.edu/innovation, and also if you want to follow us on Instagram at Dice Innovation, you'll also get updates. So please join us again February 3rd for our own much nicer version of Shark Tank called Spark Tank.
That sounds like a great event. Yeah, I'd love to check that out. And yeah, I'd also like to thank all of our partners. We work with several universities, accelerator programs here in the area to help promote and make this possible. Also working with some development groups like Nine Series and Zyk Technologies that will help get your startup off the ground. And I run a consulting group called Prepare for VC that helps startups with their pitch decks, business plans, and fundraising material. Also, wanted to let everyone know about our global conference for Startup Grind. It'll be in Silicon Valley the middle of February. It's my first year going, and really excited to. There's a great list of speakers. Really excited for that event, and would love to see all of you there. And with that, I'd love to introduce our speaker here for today, Samantha Zirkin. She has a really exciting company called Point93. Wanted to highlight the blockchain aspect and bring everyone in. But yeah, really exciting technology, and that's reinventing the retail industry, reinventing how we own our identity. And I'll let you take it away and give us an introduction before we get started on the chat.
Thanks so much. All right, I'm gonna you've already got it there. Thank you for having me. I so appreciate this, and I'm really excited to talk to you guys. Before I start, can you all hear me?
Yes.
Awesome. Okay. My name is Samantha Zirkin, and I'm the CEO of a company called Point93. And what Point93 does is drive profit and optimize operations for retailers. It's also good for us as shoppers. It's going to save us all lots of money. And here's how it's going to work. So if you guys peek up there, you can have an early view of the future of your identity. This is the commerce portion of your identity. In a few years, your identity is going to be broken out into parts. You can think of it as innate, behavioral, and opinion. So an innate attribute of your identity might be your eye color, or your love of dogs, or your blood type. Behavioral might be that you're shopping at a time of low foot traffic, or you're tweeting something. And opinion might be that you love purple or really care about corporate social responsibility. So when you go about life, you'll be sharing parts of your identity with people. For example, if you walk into your doctor's office, you'll share your blood type or maybe some past medical history. If you want to get into a bar, you might share the fact that you're over 21. If you want to get a great job, you'll share the fact that you graduated from Brandeis. And so in the commerce portion, your sharing is going to make things cheaper for you. That's why you're going to share data. You basically, in my opinion, you're going to share data for one of two reasons: either to get money for it, or to have a service, or to prove also that you're somebody who's to show third-party attested data. For example, like that you have a driver's license or you've graduated a certain place. So this is the user interface for my company. It's just an example of one. And you can see all the way to the right, it says personal data, and it says share with all stores, share with favorite stores, or ask me every time. And it also says sizes and a few other things up there. So our goal with designing this is we want to make it really simple. We want my kid's school bus driver to use this. We want my, my neighbor to use this. We want my mom to use this. This should be super simple and intuitive. Whoever uses it doesn't need to know that it's a blockchain self-sovereign identity. It should look almost like a universal customer profile. So the second one says sharing options. It says this is what you're sharing, and you can get more value by sharing more. And the third one the third and fourth show them at a granular level. So you can look at your identity at a macro level or a granular level. Do you guys have questions on this? We can make this interactive. Is that okay? Or no?
Yeah, sure. I'll jump in and ask some questions, and if anybody wants to, raise their hand, or we can do that at the end as well. But yeah, just this is a really innovative idea. And how did it, or basically, how did you come up with the solution and get started on like a software like this?
So self-sovereign identity is definitely not I didn't originate it. But yeah, the commerce portion is sort of novel. But what people in the industry are talking about is what's happening with Cambridge Analytica, what's happening with Facebook, how already all aspects of our identity have been monetized without our knowledge and shared without our permission. And most of us are pretty outraged, or at least we find it creepy. And so in reaction to that, we want to maintain our privacy, a lot of companies have started building solutions that allow us to own our own data and think consciously about how we're going to share it.
Great. We have a question right here.
Well, yeah, I just want to hear, because I think you hear a lot about how we can sort of take back the data that belongs to us and how we can make money off, like how we can then profit from that instead of everything going to the Google, the Netflix. But what's the model for that? For how do you price out what a person would be compensated if I share them my age?
Great question. All right, so show you. Bear with me for a second. So here's another example, and I promise this is going to lead to your question. There's something called intent casting. Intent casting is something that Google and Facebook don't know about us. So there's a lot of data that's super personal, that's sacred, that you just don't share online, even if you think that Amazon knows everything. For sure, it doesn't. For example, I really care about workers' rights. It's pretty doubtful that Amazon knows that about me. There's nothing in my past buying history that would suggest that. So intent casting is when you say a thing and you cast it out to people around you. So you could say, for example, I'm in the market to buy a mug. My price point is $11 or less. I want it to have purple flowers, and I want it to be this size. And then I cast the intent out to all retailers in a certain geographic area who meet that requirement, and then they can send me ads. So that's one example, but let me show you about valuing. So we talked a little bit about what our self-sovereign identity is with iCollar and medical records and third-party attested data. Corporates also have self-sovereign identities. And what's a corporate self-sovereign identity? You're going to look at something like goal margin, historical market factors, how you value customer behaviors. So when a corporate onboards and decides how to think about their identity, for our retailers, we literally give them a list like this. We say, hey, do you want all this data? Is anything useful to you? And like maybe a shoe store says, yeah, we really want to know the sizes of our customers because we're thinking about assortment. We want to know how many size 7s to get. That data is worth 3.3% of the total purchase price. And so retailers can express it in a percentage of total purchase price or a dollar amount. So those innate attributes, those are over here. And the retailers also want to understand behaviors and incentivize behaviors. They want you to stare at ads, interact with ads. They want you to tweet, share content. They want to normalize foot traffic, so they want you to maybe shop at a certain time. So these are all ways to incentivize and encourage behaviors and align incentives. You might be perfectly willing to shop at 8:30 p.m. in a brick and mortar, just as you'd be happy to shop at 5 p.m. But if I told you, hey, you'll save $28, maybe you'll change the timing of when you shop. So we have the retailer on board and literally value these things. Do we have questions, or do you want to take a break there?
Yeah, just so when you're pricing this out, are these, and you're in your initial discussions with these retail stores, are these attributes they already know how much it's worth to them, or is it sort of a trial and error thing to figure out the pricing?
That's a good question. Who here shops online a lot? Raise your hand. Awesome. Okay, so whoever had their hand up, have you seen a pop-up recently that said, hey, add your email? Yeah? Hi over there. Those are my hometown friends. Thank you all, family and friends, for coming, especially. It's really sweet. So the pop-up pops up, and it usually says, save 10% if you add your email. So they've thought about it. And I talked to thousands of retailers, and I said, what else do you want? That sizing data is super important. Gap's global head of strategy said, we would pay a ton to know how many X smalls we have at the store, because at the end of the season, I bought too deep in a size. I have tons of X smalls and tons of X larges and no mediums. That's worth a lot of money to them. A behavior, for example, that's interesting. I don't know who has ever returned a dress that they bought online. I have. Apparently in the States, about 50% of dresses that are bought get returned. Yeah, not guilty of that. Anyway, so some women, terrible women, wear them once and then return them. Imagine. So retailers would pretty much discount about 50% off if you promised not to return it. If you said, this is a final sale. I know this is my size. I know this is the thing that I'm going to keep. Final sale. So something like that, a behavioral attribute, can impact your price a tremendous amount.
So these are basically contracts you're signing between the customer and the retailer that either you're giving them certain information or they're agreeing not to return something or other aspects.
Yeah, so the information you're giving is interesting. If you picture it in this disaggregated way, or let's use shoe size for an example. Shoe size is pretty innocuous. Like most of us don't feel that's too creepy to share, right? There are a lot of things that we would never share, but shoe size is kind of neutral. So, all right, we'll pick that one. So imagine you want to share your shoe size with a shoe store. And you say, yeah, I want to buy this $100 pair of shoes, and they're really cute, but I can't afford that. So I'll tell the retailer what I can afford. Hey, I can afford to pay $11. Normally I shop at TJ Maxx, but I'm going to shop here at this fancy retailer. I'll pay $11. You're telling them your price. And then you can tell them some other stuff, my size. And you know what? I'm going to call it a final sale. And I don't need the shoes right now. I want them for a wedding. I'm willing to wait till the wedding. That's 38 days away. So you've told the retailer a lot of facts. In real time, you have an algorithm that's going to look at a host of factors. It's going to look at your self-sovereign identity to pull that shoe data. It's going to look at the retailer's self-sovereign identity to look at their goal margin, how many shoes are in stock, the rate at which the shoes are selling, and it's also going to pull data from the market, like exogenous market factors, things that could affect foot traffic, like weather. You can even pass on a commodity cost increase to the customer this way. And then while you're still standing there holding your really cute shoes for $11, you get feedback, and it says either you get it now at $11, you get it within your time frame, that 38 days, or try one more time, you bid too low. And you can get one more chance within 24 hours. And the goal with that is, aside from the ethical monetization of your data or behaviors, the goal with that is to find out the maximum price each item clears the market at. So rather than that retailer who sold that $100 shoes discounting at 90% off, where we find them at TJ Maxx, you just bid 89% off. That's better. and it was at the first store. So it never went 30% off, then 50% off, then in a truck to TJ Maxx. So there's less environmental impact, and then the retailer saves money, you save money, because you probably would have bought it at full price or 60% off. It's doubtful that you would have searched it, and the whole thing is more optimized.
Great. Yeah, I mean, that sounds like it saves a lot of money on both sides, and you know, it's also very, very convenient for the customers. Yeah, so on the, I mean, in that example, basically are they signing off, you know, are they signing off if the store agrees they're automatically purchasing the shoe, or how does that work?
Yeah, and for my company it does, but we can get more general too, because I know you guys probably have questions far separate from the commerce portion of your identity. Let me look at the flow. Okay, so here, this is an example. In a brick and mortar store, you have an app online. Of course, you can buy this online too. It's a plugin. This is an example of the app. I want to buy this fancy shirt, and I definitely don't want to pay, God, what's that price? That's an insane price. So I'm not going to pay that, and I would never pay $7.90 either, but let's pretend it's $7.90. And then I picked my time frame, and then I decided how much data I was sharing, if any. The data can also be set up like ahead of time, so you're not doing this for each purchase. And then you get a yes, you get it now. Congratulations. And then I'll show you what it looks like online. And yes, it's a binding bid. So for you finance people, this is a put option. You're giving the retailer the right, but not the obligation, to accept $7.90 anytime between today and the end of the day. And retailers can use those put options to build demand curves and forecast. So for example, Sears or Toys R Us, those companies wouldn't have gone out of business if they knew how much cash they had on hand, if they had binding put options. Right now they guess. They use historical data to make predictions, and sometimes that historical data isn't very predictive. Let's see if I can find, there, that's what it looks like online. Basically the same thing. It's a little plugin, and you click.
Great. Yeah, we have a question here.
So what if it's a service-side retail, like a haircut or a salon? So you would put in something like, I want this style, I need it within X amount of time, and then how do you then, is there a factor, like how do you decide based on an interaction with the hairdresser or something along those lines? Or is this something that is not, are you focused solely on retail and inventory?
I think you should start this company. So my company is for clothing, home goods, electronics, or accessories. We didn't do food and we didn't do services. I think they do think about services in a fundamentally different way. And yeah, if you want to talk after, we could do an offshoot. Yeah.
I'm sorry, Lennon, where does the blockchain fit into all this?
Good question.
And where's all this data stored?
Data is on your phone, and that's where you enter it in. And yes, so a blockchain self-sovereign identity. Let me explain a little. Thank you for. Obviously, you guys have heard the whole distributed database. Your data is living in many different places. The thing that makes it self-sovereign identity is that the data is disaggregated and it can be called back. So after you share your shoe size with Walmart or whoever, you can see an audit trail of who has your data, what they have, and you can call it back. You can revoke permission. And you can also set a time thing. You can say, I want to share my shoe size just for this transaction and get paid for it, or I don't even care who has my shoe size, they can keep it forever. And so that's significant because that's almost like the right to being forgotten in Europe. It allows you to have true ownership and awareness of where your data lives. You can build this in a relational database. It's slightly less secure, but we don't do transactions on the blockchain, and so it is actually efficient to do it as a blockchain company here. Is that?
So I got confused for a second. You said the data is on my phone, but it's on the blockchain?
No. Personal data is not on the blockchain. Sorry, definitely misspoke. We don't want to put personal data on the blockchain because blockchain is forever, immutable, and I would never want to put anything personal on something that was going to last forever. So you can represent personal data as a hash, or you can encrypt things. But were you asking something more?
No, I'm just trying to figure out how the whole interaction works. So if I have information here, I'm just understanding what the blockchain is doing.
I'm giving you a
in the background.
key. I'm giving you a key architecture. diagram to show you. All right,
Sorry.
for you no, it's a great question. For you non-computer science people, there we go. All right. So this is the app and the cursor working. So you enter in your data on your phone. And for those who don't know, UPort is an example of a self-sovereign identity solution from a shop called Consensus. When we're building, we didn't pick one blockchain platform. There's Hyperledger, there's Consensus, there's Sovereign. We believe in interoperability, so we are trying to build so we can work with all solutions. Come to me after for more like deep tech if that's.
Okay. Yeah. So basically, how did so you built up this app and our database blockchain system. How did you sort of go about getting retailers involved and sort of finding the right customers and avenues to get started on a project and engagement like this?
I'm just gonna augment your question. Who's got a startup or thinking of having a startup? Okay, cool. So first customer is always fun. We started really small. We went to a customer, we went to Brandeis, it's a fancy department store, and I was like, hey, I'd love to beta test with you. And they didn't even know the word beta test, and they were like, what's that mean? and I said, we want to bring lots of customers to your store to buy things. And they said, oh, this sounds good. For first customers, I think it's great to have a free thing, be a value add to them, and keep your test really small. And then after you prove your value, with Brandeis, we measured the revenue uplift in a study. It was pretty small, we had like 30 people. And then we came back and we said, look, we made you a 9% revenue uplift. We allowed a bunch of my friends to come and shop in Brandeis with a tiny app that barely worked. And all it did was take pictures of tags of items. And then a little chat bot came up and said, what would you pay, how long would you wait? And then my friends went home. They didn't get to buy anything there. And anybody who had said between full price and 30% off, I would walk back to Barney's when they had their 40% off sale, and I bought everything and handed it to my friends and marked it down in our sheet. So that way I was able to measure the revenue uplift and give my friends the objects. But yeah, there are a lot of hacks in the beginning. And then we got our first real customer shortly after by showing that data.
Oh, great. And what other types of like hacks and tricks did you use to get started? Obviously, it's the more you can test out at an earlier stage, it really helps in building traction.
Yeah, I think a good hack is for me was education. You guys probably have the benefit of an amazing education. Most of your students here, that's the best way. But the second best way, I think, is, or if you need something specific, I generally go to the world expert. So this is a fun hack. You don't have to be satisfied with a book or a website. You can find the world expert. For example, I didn't have a tech background, so I knew that I was going to need help with the blockchain part. So I went to I hung out with a bunch of CTOs and went to a bunch of meetups. And I learned that this guy, Brian Bellendorf, runs a company called Hyperledger. He's like a legend. He invented Apache, and he was the CTO for something called the World Economic Forum, and did a whole lot of other amazing things. And everybody said such wonderful things about this guy. So I was like, okay, this is my guy. And so I went on his blog, and I saw where he was speaking, and I read some background, and I was very familiar with his work by the time I met up with him. And I saw he was speaking in Vegas. So I made it my business to be in Vegas. And I accidentally bumped into him and knew all about his work. And we became friends. And now he's my advisor. Similarly, Jimmy Wales runs Wikipedia. I was like, that's the guy I want to meet. I have some questions on his work. And these people are accessible. I also, we were chatting on the phone about a Nobel Prize winner. There's a guy named Daniel Kahneman. You guys should all read this book, Thinking Fast and Slow. Amazing. The guy won the Nobel Prize. And it took one cold email to him to be like, hey, I really admire your work. I'd read all his work. So don't ever, my advice is to not reach out without being an expert. You should have read all the studies, all the books, be fully familiar with their work and know why you're reaching out, and write a thoughtful letter. It shouldn't be 2 lines. And compliment. You're excited about their work, you're super passionate about it. That's why you're reaching out, that's why you read 8 of their books. And if you convey that excitement, and they're gonna be excited too, and they'll hang with you and they'll chat with you and you can ask questions. That's a great way.
Oh, those are incredible stories. Yeah, I mean, even a cold email or just tracking someone down and trying to avoid the word
I
stalking.
recommend stalking. I'm kidding. I recommend a targeted, direct approach.
Yeah.
What was the name of the book again?
Thinking Fast and Slow. It's a really good book. Yeah, it builds empathy for your fellow humans because it shows how challenged we all are, and very fascinating.
So what are some of the biggest pieces of advice, like either those advisors or other mentors you've had, given you to move things forward?
I think you want to. This is just a personal opinion, not so much advice. But for me, I didn't use them so much for advice. I used them for technical expertise. In the beginning, I was told when you want funding, go ask for advice, and when you want advice, go ask for funding. I disagree. Don't do that, especially as a woman. If you're a woman in tech, don't go to anyone and ask for advice. They will give you advice, and you've been researching your company hopefully for years, and they've taken a look for maybe 5 to 10 minutes at your company. They don't have advice on your company or your work or your background or your history, and they don't know you. What they do know is what they studied and what they have a PhD in, and they're an expert in that. So ask them about their work and how it pertains to this specific thing about yours.
That's great advice. Yeah, so, basically, you put a real focus on the education part and making sure to learn all of this. At the same time, you're trying to start a company and build it out. How do you sort of balance the two, constant learning with building your company?
Yeah, I think they do dovetail. So for example, I was at this conference really recently called Retail's Big Show. It was the Javits Center and had 40,000 people. It's amazing. The biggest industry event for me. And I went and I asked the people I was talking with to grab a coffee with me, and I said, please tell me about your day. How does it start? What are you doing at 9 a.m.? What are your pain points? What excites you about your work? So it's almost like an informational interview, and that's been really helpful for me to learn about the industry. So from CEOs to people in the supply chain to pricing analysts, to really have a breadth of knowledge, I'd recommend kind of reaching outside who you think you need to talk to, and talk to everyone, and and do invite them to food. People like to chat over food. And the other trick, or not so much trick, the other thing that I offer, I say, would you prefer me to treat you to dinner, coffee, or would you prefer me to make a donation to your favorite charity? Because you're kind of using these people or I do at least, as a consultant. And sometimes consultants charge $5,000 an hour, and so you're not paying them what they make. So please be very gracious. And I've had the charity thing a couple times that people are really excited about that. So that's been a winner.
No, these are great tips, and are there anyone? So obviously, if you're, a lot of these people you purposefully sought out, and is there anyone sort of who has taken a larger role or become more of an advisor that you weren't really expecting, when you initially got connected to them?
Yeah, my co-founder. So she's not quite an advisor, but yeah, I didn't expect that she would. I came to her. We worked together 20 years ago, and she was amazing. So sometimes it can be a peer that becomes the wise advisor.
Do you have a question?
Yeah, so we all make mistakes. What's one mistake that you made that turned out really well?
Oh, I've made many mistakes. Turned out well. Let's see. Okay, I would say being gutsy. In the beginning, I was really, I left high school pretty young. Those friends know I was 15, and I was always really self-conscious that I didn't have the background there. And Brandeis really thankfully accepted me anyway. But so the mistake that I made was getting into these business meetings these were mistakes. These were not great things to do as a early startup founder. And I was fully, like when I first got in front of the CEO of Unilever, I was totally unprepared. But it worked out okay. Like he was kind and he saw that I was new. And he was like, this is a fun idea. And here's the, email of the person you should talk to in our shop. I was like, wow. So sometimes it can work out well, but I would recommend being prepared. Yeah.
You said that you came, excuse me, you said that you came into this with no technical background. How do you go about gaining a technical background?
Very good question. I'm still working on that. Absolutely, every day. So at first I was like, okay, I'm gonna learn how to code. I'm gonna go to code.org and I'm gonna figure this out. And that actually wasn't the greatest approach for me. It worked, but what I found out really quickly is I'm not that great at coding, and it's gonna take me 3 years to gain like proficiency. And I can hire someone today to do that job. All I need to be is good enough to understand like this is the commit, and I can look it over, and I can. So you don't have to be the best. You just have to be good enough to hire the best. And then you can get lots of feedback too. Like I made friends with a couple of CTOs, and I vet my employees with them. Like I have an interview and I make them go through a lot of technical vetting. That's not me. So I wouldn't recommend becoming an expert in everything. I also just for tech Hacker News and Hacker Noon and Stack Exchange, the usual suspects. But again, you don't need to be a total expert. Like my math background, I never got really good at applied math. I really can't do a regression myself. So don't do everything yourself. Hire, use Upwork, use TopTal, don't pay much.
And what sort of, obviously, there's some areas you learned on the job and some, you're hiring other people for. Can you dive into like a little bit more of your background, like what expertise you had coming into this that helped you?
None. So yeah, I guess that's hopefully inspirational, but also scary. So what you do in the start, and most startups don't start like this. I spent the first 2 years researching and learning because I didn't have a background. So what my first hires were technical people, and we did tiny little. When I said don't pay much, I meant because you're doing tiny projects. I would pay someone like $200 to come up with like a really simple test. Like let's have an app that barely does anything, and we're just going to do some user testing and see if this works. So there's a lot of iteration when you aren't an expert in your field. Yeah.
There's a question.
A follow-up question is like how big is your team and what's the ratio of your technical team versus your retail and operations and rest of the teams?
We are almost all technical. We have 8 people total. At times we've had up to 15. And that's the contractors. We're distributed. And so what we do, there's not an office I actually have an office, but nobody else comes to it. I'm alone. So in the morning, we have a 10 a.m. check-in, no matter what time zone you're at. You gotta be 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We do video, we do an hour, and I say, hey guys, I'll go around, and I say, what did you do since the last check-in? What are you gonna do for the next one? And tell me any blockers that you have. That's our method, and that actually seems to work for us pretty well.
Just trying to understand the technology better, I guess, and I guess like more succinctly, like I guess how adoption of blockchain technology will happen. I'm definitely not the most well versed on it, so apologize if the question doesn't fully make sense. But so with your app, does it sounds like it requires both end users, like any individual in this room, as well as businesses. Is that right, or is that?
Correct.
Okay.
So our app is B2B, business to business, and B2C, business to customer. So I talk to large retailers like Victoria's Secret or Walmart, on and offline retailers, and right now we're in the stage of piloting. So our goal to the end of Q4 is to pilot with 3 large retailers that have like over a $5 billion market cap. And then at the end of that, we're going to do a large fundraising round after we can prove our quantify return on investment, prove that this thing works, and we're going to get 10 large retailers, and then we're going to go to market retailers drive the traffic to their own websites. And the app, the in-store associates say, hey, you want to buy that $100 coat? Do you know that you could save $60? You try this app. And so the customer's incentivized because they're going to save significant money. Yes?
What's your strategy to monetize as you gain more retailers?
Good question. So we want you to own your own data. We never want to sell your data or customer data. The way we make money is imagine a $100 item that the retailer is just about to mark 50% off. And we got you scanned it and you said, or saw it online and you said, it's worth $54 to me. And I'm willing to wait X number of days. You would have paid 50 and then you paid 54, or the retailer thought you would have paid 50. Maybe you would have bought it at full price, maybe you would have never bought it. We take the $4, the difference between the projected markdown and what we capture, and we take a percentage of that. So maybe we take 2 of those $4.
How do you hold them accountable to the fact that they really did think it was going to be $50?
We have that in our algorithm. We when they onboard, they have to come up with a projected markdown and goal margin, so we can decide, we can do the revenue optimization model to decide when we should accept it. Over time though, with AI and just understanding how to price, our retailers are going to get better at this. And so as the system gets smarter, probably 2 years in, we'll change that model. Instead of a revenue share, we'll do a percentage of the total cost of the item, probably 3%. Yeah.
It seems like you could almost work directly with manufacturers.
Yeah. Our go-to-market strategy isn't that, but yes.
And have you given any thought to having the retailers, or maybe you're already doing this and I missed it, but having the retailers kind of bid against each other for the value of the data, or bid their prices lower in order to meet the need of a consumer?
Let's talk after. These are good ideas. We have not, but
Because in the online education space, you probably know that like say getting an MBA online, huge business, and the way that works is that a consumer will do like a search on somehow on the web. They'll find a form and they'll fill it out, and that form is not usually for one online school. It goes into a bidding system, and then the online schools bid against each other to get access to that data.
So this is an example actually of intent casting. So yeah, that is a fascinating thing. What we do, we're just developing this. It's not a feature that's done yet. We're probably going to do it after launch. But we want to do a feature that allows you to say what you want to buy, kind of like that, and then they can shoot you back the best price. Men shop very differently than women, though. This was a fun thing in our learnings. You guys may have suspected that men and women are different, yeah? Cognitively different. But men really react to shopping in a whole different way and like react to bargaining in a different way. So that was, in our user testing, right off we learned that we have to split them out into 2 groups. It's not based on age or background or your finances. It's pretty much based on your gender, the way you interact with things. In our case, which is really interesting.
So what are some of those differences?
For example, men shop that way. They tend to want to cast an intent out, and they see things more, this is just a generalization, not all men, they see things more as commodities. Like, I want to buy a white shirt, and a white shirt will do. And a woman is like, oh no, it has to have this color and be this cut and this, I want this white shirt, and it's not interchangeable. And it's, again, a generalization. The other thing that we found is people abandon the app at different times. Like, people would find it, some people would find it a cognitive burden to have it back and forth too many times, like a barter. Like, at first we were like, oh, we should just have the perfect price match. Like, we'll go back and forth between the retailer and the customer 4 times to find the best price. And men and women were abandoning the app at different times.
So one of the reasons why self-sovereign identity is seen as such an exciting application of blockchain is that it divorces identity from third parties. That's why it's self-sovereign identity. And so there have been people writing about how this particular use of blockchain, and blockchain in general, but especially self-sovereign identity, is going to level the e-commerce playing field, because you're not going to be reliant on, like, say, the Facebook API to use logins that are super convenient. This is going to be one step above that and more secure. So can you speak to more about how self-sovereign identity is going to impact the relative power of like the big players right now, like Alibaba and Amazon, and is this gonna help the smaller players have more traction?
Yeah, this is a great question. Our brands, our retailers are really excited because they think that this is going to help them compete with Amazon and Alibaba. I agree, because this is direct to consumer. So this allows you to negotiate directly with Gap or wherever you're shopping, and it allows them to compete with Amazon because you can showroom and decide that that white T-shirt you want to pay $11 for, so you know that other people will sell it for that. You say, oh, I see this guy's selling it for $8 and this guy's selling it for $4. So you know that 4 is the lowest price that you found online. So you might bid 3, and then you give a long time frame. So that does allow them like direct communication with you.
And do you see an application into the e-commerce space as well, or it's mainly a retail focus?
No, I had the plugin up there. That's e-commerce. That's the I think over time, obviously, you guys all know more shopping's online than off. So for sure. The other thing about self-sovereign identity that's really interesting is the idea that of the revocation of data, that you've given data to somebody for a certain amount of time and then you can pull it back. That to me is really interesting.
Is that inherent in the definition of self-sovereign?
Yeah.
And is that standard accepted in the industry, like the retail industry, that's okay?
Retailers really don't know about self-sovereign identity. They're just starting to hear the word blockchain, which is funny because it was cool 2 years ago, and now they're like, what? They're still very caught up in like blockchain's crypto, and they're not clear that it's the underlying technology of Bitcoin. They're not clear. What they are clear about is GDPR, which is new laws passed in Europe, and they want to be GDPR compliant. Basically, those are laws around, I'm going to butcher this, I'm no expert, but there are laws around what you can do with customer data. Yeah.
While we're on the topic of GDPR, I'm just kind of curious because you're in this space. Like, where do you see data privacy going in the next year or two within this country? Do you think we're going to see any type of GDPR from American politicians, and just kind of what your thoughts are on the future of that here?
Oh, I wish we would. I don't think so in this country. I really wish we would because I feel like it's so. Who here is familiar with the Chinese citizen scores? Yeah. Okay. So for the few that aren't, like, put it in a retail context, you're not bored. And if you shop on Alibaba and you buy a lot of diapers and milk and things for your growing family that are sort of standard good person things, Alibaba gives that information to the government, and the government comes up with a citizen score based on your buying purchases. Another family might be really into drinking a lot of alcohol and buy sparklers. That family actually gets a worse citizen score. And the citizen scores are used for things like access to public buses. So if you have a really low citizen score, you might be dangerous. You might not get on a public bus. So it's terrifying. So I think that our government is just fundamentally set up in a different way. And if I'm butchering the citizen scores, or if anybody else has anything to say, please add. This is not my area of expertise. But I think that's what I heard was current with the scoring system. But yeah, does that answer your question?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, you pretty much said like you don't really think so.
Sadly, I wish we would. I think we should.
Yeah. So how is sort of obviously there's a bunch of blockchain companies that have taken off in the last few years. There's been the Facebook privacy privacy issues, and so how do you think sort of the push for a type of system like this that people more even just within the retail space control their identity, or where do you see other applications of this type of software?
I think this is the commerce one will be the first to go to market just because people want to save money, so this is a super clear use case. And healthcare is definitely happening, but that there's so much regulation on, I think that won't be for years. I think regulation is going to allow nobody cares if your shoe size is shared, but a lot of the other sectors I think are going to get held back by regulation.
Is there a question on?
So you go to the proof of concept, you go to a bigger raise. Have you raised external funding to date? How did that process work for you in terms of, especially pre-revenue, convincing investors?
Yeah, it's challenging. We did a seed round, and we got really lucky, I think. I came from the nonprofit sector, and I worked in an orphanage 5 years later, he came to America because he sold his company. He just happened to be in the States, and he looked me up and he said, "I'm going to be in America. I want to grab a bite." And I said, "Sure." So he and his partner and I grabbed a bite, and he said, "What are you up to now?" And I said, "I started this software company." And he said, "Great. What's the valuation?" And I said, "Oh, it's worth 25 million." I was kidding. And he said, "Oh, great. I'll take a percent." And I said, "Oh my God, I'm kidding. We just started." He's like, "What's it really worth?" And I was still kidding. And I said, 12 and a half. And he said, "Good, 2%. And then I shut up. And we did a convertible note.
That's awesome.
Don't repeat that story.
Have you raised external funding since then, and what was sort of the process around, finding the other investors?
So that same investor came back in. I was more honest with him. We did a full due diligence, and I really went through the idea, and he reinvested after that. The rest of the money has come from the founding team, but we just opened a round, so we shall see.
Yeah, just curious to I guess from the B2C perspective, how have you went about bringing on the consumers, and just curious to learn a little bit more about that, because I've started to see some different businesses, both B2B and B2C.
Yeah, the B2C thing is very challenging. Because we're in stealth mode and plan to stay in stealth mode to 2020, we're doing something with affinity groups. So I started 5 affinity groups. For example, one of them is around mothers, another is around people who care about data privacy. And each affinity group, I tried to go where the people live. So like my mom's group is on Facebook. That's where 10,000 moms in New York City and Queens are. So I was already in that group, and I happened to luckily be admin. And some of the other groups I just started, like other mom groups. Let's see, we have a lot of groups on Slack. We have our data privacy people are on Telegram, and we pull from a lot of the dev communities. We go to the meetups, and what we do with the affinity group is we place 5 people, and these are contractors or student volunteers, and they're plants. They're authentically of their affinity group. So like the mothers are mothers, and the people in the data privacy group care about data privacy, but they're hired by me, and they're hired to create content and engage with the community. And honestly though, like if somebody says, "Do you work for Point 93?" It's on their LinkedIn, and they're supposed to say yes. But they're there to cultivate and quietly grow the community and guide the conversation. And we'll hire more after the raise.
And as you're dealing with 2 sides of the market, like what do you see as the harder sell, to get more businesses on board onto your platform, or to build a large community of customers that are ready to try your product?
I think the customers will be harder. Right now we're not focused on that because we're really focused on building the product and making it interoperable. We want to partner with more deeply with the 3 identity solution providers that I talked about, and we're really focused on the B2B. We also hope that part of the contract with the retailers is that they do drive the traffic to their own websites, and they will hand out the app.
I'm just thinking about your process of growth and your trajectory in terms of filling out your team. And I think on the question earlier, you said that you have about 7 or 8 people, and you're almost all on the tech side. So you're really focused on the product. Do you anticipate when you go for your next round that there's going to be a need for you to demonstrate more sales traction? I'm guessing you're doing all the sales right now. As a next step in your growth, are you going to probably have to hire a sales team? Is that what you're thinking? Or?
Absolutely, yeah. So when we raised the capital, we've just been sharing with investors, like, here's how we're going to spend the money. And yeah, we have B2B salespeople. We have our B2C. We're trying to get more serious about. While we love hiring students, and we are definitely hiring students, the ones we have right now are high school age. So that's been interesting to work with younger people. We want to have some adults to supervise that group. We need 1 data scientist. And who else are we looking for? Looking for a mathematician. Yeah, there are a lot of positions. But yeah, we definitely want to augment the team. Make it less.
Is that all built into your pitch deck?
It is. Yeah, you want to see a pitch deck? We got one. Yeah.
So what do you look for when you make these hires? Like, and has everybody that you've gone with so far worked out and stuck with the team?
No. This is to your mistake question. I've made many hiring mistakes. Okay. Quick story about a happy hiring thing, and then I'll give you a story. Actually, I'll start with a mistake story. I hired a friend, which can sometimes work out great. My co-founder's a friend, but this friend was I hired him as a CTO. Quick tip: if you have a tiny startup with like 2 to 10 people, don't hire a CTO. Hire a lead architect and engineer. And you're the CTO, pretty much. You'll work with that person, and in conjunction, you can build. So hiring a CTO, he started, and we talked about him actually coding. That because we're so small, you're CTO, but you're gonna get your hands dirty, you're gonna code. The very first week, he was sat back and he was like, "So who should we hire to code?" He only lasted a few weeks, but another mistake that I made is I didn't fire him fast. I saw that he didn't understand his role, and I was like, okay, we're gonna work with him. He's a friend. Maybe we can hire more people. I think when you have a small startup and finite capital, it's really good to be able to just be like, well, thanks for coming in. It's been 4 hours and it's not working out. It's okay to say that. So now, what we've been doing since then, when I bring somebody on, I bring them on for a tiny project. I'm like, come in, do an hour's worth of work. I'll pay you for an hour. Do 5 hours worth of work. So they really start as contractors, and only after like 6 to 8 weeks do we even talk about hiring them. And a happy hiring story, a non-work example, my nanny. To me, my children are even more important than my job, and so this was like the be-all and end-all position to hire for. So what I did is I did a global search. I wrote a SurveyMonkey survey that was 20 pages long. It was crazy, and had essays and everything. And I asked all about the drug history and personality of this person. And anyway, then I wrote a really funny cover letter. And the cover letter was so funny that it went viral. It got picked up by Gawker, and UK Mail was on the front page of both. And over 500 people filled out this crazy 20-page survey. And then I was able to filter and find our Mary Poppins, and she's been with us 9 years. But it was the forethought of like spending a month writing this crazy survey, making it super funny, and positioning it so it would like hit viral. And so I wish I had that same effort I could put into my startup team.
And how, so obviously all those people were willing to share some of their identity to get the job. But yeah, I mean, basically, with that story, like, how do you, go about balancing the personal life, the work life, like anything else here, you're dealing with, and like, one of the statements you brought up at the beginning, somebody asking, or you asking, what other people's schedules are like how does your day-to-day outlook look?
Yeah, it's an interesting question. So I have 3 kids, and I started my startup really late after my kids were all in school. You guys hopefully should do that in the reverse. I wouldn't recommend this trajectory. I would recommend getting out of school and working really hard, preferably before you have kids. Because once you have kids, sometimes your priorities change. And like for me, my kids are here and work is here. As much as I'm so passionate about my job, my kids aren't my priority. And for me, I find that I can only have 2 or 3 priorities. So I choose my kids, my work, and then myself. And myself, only the basics. I just want to not die, basically. So health. And so I don't get to hang out with my friends. I don't have a normal life. And if you're a startup founder, you're not going to have a normal life. It's not a normal thing to do. It's a 90-hour work week. Sometimes it's more. I don't have a break between now and February 6th. I'm working every day on the weekends. I'm flying to 4 different countries. It's not normal. So don't start a startup if you want work-life balance.
On that note, where do you get your energy from?
It's very kind of you.
But seriously, I don't know, like great routine or something?
I'm super passionate about my company. I love it. Like, it is my true love. I believe in it. We start startups because we see a vision of the future. We think the world should be this way. Like, I think that we should all be able to afford things. I think that's really critical. I think that retailers waste hundreds of billions of dollars in discounting. I think it's terrible what they do with our data. I think it's frightening, and it's gonna lead to a dystopian future. I'm super passionate about it, and I find it endlessly interesting. So yeah, that's where I think we should.
Like, on the whole, I guess, right, so I was reading this article on AI the other day, and Purdue University is like creating this, I don't even know what you call it, but it combines sophisticated algorithms with big data to then take in data, and like the algorithms have all these different theorems, right? Like social theorems, psychological theorems, like literally you can put in any theorem that's ever been created, right? And then can then predict outcomes of individuals based on all of that. And there are some potential complications there, because if the person, whoever's in charge of that, decides to not put in the algorithm of the human ability to adapt and overcome, it's pretty much like, hey, you're boxed into this thing, and this is who you are, and like kind of, you know, that dystopian future. I guess, like, what needs to happen for that not to be the case? And it's a huge question.
Such a fun question.
I'm not asking for like all the answers, but it's just something I've been thinking about. Curious to hear your perspective.
I love that question. So I think the fun thing about having a company or building new technology is that you have to ask yourself these ethical questions and go down the road. If you're Mark Zuckerberg, you should be thinking 10 years down the road. And like an example for our startup was our retailers really wanted to reward customers who were loyal. A loyal customer is somebody who spends a lot of money in the store or online. A loyal customer is basically a rich person. And I said, so how do you want to reward these people? And they said, oh, we want to give them price discounts. And I said, so you basically want to get rich people price discounts? And they said, yeah. We want to incentivize them to come back. And I said, well, what happens to the person who can't afford things on your website? And they're like, that's a bad customer. We definitely don't want to help them out. So basically what they were trying to do was perpetuate the cycle of poverty. And you would do that in the algorithm by rewarding, you know, people who bought in bulk more, or people who had been long-term customers. So when we make our algorithm, we have a conversation with our customers about things we won't exploit. So we won't perpetuate the cycle of poverty. Our algorithm doesn't reward people who make more money, it doesn't make the price cheaper. For example, Uber and Lyft probably suspect that I have kids and that their school starts at 8 a.m. 99% they know that. And they know that I would pay $50 to get to their school if I'm late. They don't do that, they don't exploit it in the algorithm. They know when all of us start work, and they exploit many other things, but not that. So certain things are sacred. And when you guys make your own companies, or you have your existing companies, those are things that you and your team should talk about, what your values are and how to build that into your product. It could be accessibility, it could be changing the way people access making your product easy to use for everybody, or it could be what your product does for people. Sorry, did that answer?
Oh yeah, and just for clarification, I wasn't like suggesting that that's what you were trying to do.
No, it was a great question.
No, I was just thinking, like, on the whole, is all this new technology coming out with blockchain, and it sounds like, and I'm still learning about it, but it sounds like part of the overall movement is the individual protection of data. And so I'm just trying to get a better understanding of, from every side, from the technological side as well as the go-to-market strategies and what needs to happen from the political aspect of things. Like, there's so many moving parts. So just trying to open up just trying to get as many people's perspectives as possible in the space overall. But yeah, for sure. Thank you.
Thanks for the question.
In your experience, what's a bigger hurdle to overcome, like selling to retailers with underlying technology being blockchain, or pitching to like VCs and investors with the fact that the underlying technology is blockchain?
Our retailers don't care about our tech stack. They never ask. The only time we use our tech stack in our B2B sales is to engender excitement. For sure, I'm going to capitalize on the fact that it's a hot technology, but like we said earlier, it could be a relational database. It doesn't have to be blockchain. So I try not to push it with my retailers, because what if we change our minds and say, you know what, we're gonna do this better with a granting consent with a traditional technology. We wanna tell them we built a thing that works and it's gonna make them money. And that's as far as they care. Who's your question?
So there are, there are like blockchain VCs out there.
Oh, the VCs, yeah.
Are there some VCs that won't even like look at something in the blockchain space yet that you see?
Joseph Lubin will not look at things in the blockchain space. Do you guys know who Joseph Lubin is? He runs a shop called Consensus. He's a very wealthy man. He was an early Ethereum architect. He's one of probably the top 3 people in the world in blockchain, and he doesn't invest in blockchain outside Consensus. But yeah, I'll let you know. We just opened our round, so my first meeting is in Davos. Cross your fingers for me.
You're looking for a lead right now? Or
Yeah.
someone?
Yeah. I think that for sure our VCs will care. Guessing.
Yeah, quick question. With Amazon and all these companies rolling out the new technology where they can record you basically, not only the audio but the visual information about your family and yourself, do you see that the clients or your customers will be coming to your app for privacy concerns or mostly for the savings concerns? Do you see there is a switch that people are getting more educated? And unfortunately, I don't believe government is going to be able to do anything because we have very elderly people sitting there that don't understand technology. So that's not going to happen. So do you see that public is moving into understanding their privacy and their information out there and what companies are doing? Do they see the value, or what your experience is?
I'm actually curious. Raise your hand in this room if you're really if on a scale from 1 to 10, with 10 being like I'm ultra paranoid and I like put tinfoil on my phone. Who's a 10?
What's the question?
How do you feel about your privacy? Like, are you ultra paranoid and you like cover your phone with tinfoil and you use Signal and you use a VPN? Raise your hand. Me and you raise. Me and you. Yeah. Okay. What about who is a 5? A 5 would be like you're upset about Cambridge Analytica and you feel violated that Mariel lost your data and some of your behaviors have changed. Who's a 5? Okay. And who maybe is like a 1, 2, or 3 where like you believe that like you have nothing to hide maybe and like it's okay that people have your data and it's no big deal. It's all over the map, and this is an educated community drawn from the small. So when I do, this is just in my like unscientific study. Most people don't care. When you leave this educated community, my kid's school bus driver is like, what's data? And I don't do drugs. I don't care that anybody knows about my life. I find that really frightening because if you do really fully explain it to somebody, then they get scared. But it really depends on the individual too. I mean, you guys are very educated and you do know, and there are a chunk of you that are 1 to 3. So I don't think there's a right or wrong answer. But I think what this technology does that's really beautiful, it lets all of us choose for ourselves. Whether we don't care and we're happy to share, or we want to keep it private, this puts the control in your hands so you can determine what's right for you.
Yeah, and how do you go about, so I mean, some of the data, obviously, you're entering into that application and it's data you're sharing with retailers. They have a lot of data about us already. How do you take back some of that control from the retailer?
What's out there is out there, but you can start getting paid for data. And this is what I think, whether you're a 1 or a 10, we all get annoyed when we give away something for free. Like if I said, hey, I once worked as a hotel maid for a full week. I was 21 and really poor, and I was in a foreign country. And so I worked really hard, my fingers were bleeding, I saw really gross things. Don't ever work as a hotel maid. Anyway, at the end of the week, the guy who had hired me said, I'm not gonna pay you. You don't speak the language, you can't prove you worked here. This, good luck, kid. I was heartbroken, I was crying. I was really angry that I was not paid for my work. Hopefully you've not had such a similar experience. But you've all been giving away work for free, whether it's opinion data, whether it's innate data, behavioral data, and you should be angry about that. And so I think that that's how we're going to galvanize the B2C movement. Like, you should be angry, you should get paid for your work.
Yeah, that's a question.
I was going to say, you alluded to your pitch deck earlier. Like how long is your pitch deck in terms of how long does it take you to complete the whole thing, and how many times have you done it since your startup?
So my only thought on that is, so I have like 10 different pitch decks and they're always changing. So I pitch, first before I start pitching, I find out who the person across from me is. So if you're ever like in a VC dating thing, like say like, tell me about your fund. What do you invest in? What sectors? What do you care about? What are you looking for? Because it's like dating. If that person's like, I'm ready to get married tomorrow, and I'm like, oh, I'm poly, it's not gonna work out. So ask them first. Preferably don't pitch them that first session. Just get a feel for them. And you can even say like, do you want to see 10 pages? Do you want to see a book? What do you expect for our next meeting? Should it be 30 minutes? Should it be over the phone in person? Try to always be in person, by the way. Yeah, because it's much harder to say no to somebody after you've met them. But yeah, have lots of different versions and feel free to, always iterate it. You'll get feedback. The other thing about taking no advice though, at your heart, you should have a vision and you shouldn't change that vision. You can iterate your product, you can take some feedback, change fonts, change your tech stack, but you don't want to change your vision and you should have full confidence in your vision.
Yeah, we got
You mentioned on the blockchain, the relational database. How big is the difference in the performance? Did you kind of find it great in reaching out to that blockchain after you found that was the best approach in terms of the problem you're trying to solve? And could you maybe go back to the relational database or?
Ours can be done either way. So we're not doing transactions on the blockchain. That's slow and not feasible for retail. Like for example, if you want to buy a shirt and do the transaction on the blockchain, that's going to take like a few minutes. You're not going to sit around like waiting more. How long does it take? The best case scenario.
Well, it depends what you're using. If you're using our confidential multi-chain, it's a fraction of a second.
We got to get you up here to pitch. What's the best case scenario, would you say?
So if you're using like a fork of Ethereum, which most of those products I saw were, whether it's Hyperledger, Fabric, or any number one of those, probably it's not useful in a retail setting. It also depends how many nodes you have running, how much cache power you have. So it could be minutes.
So when we started like 3 years ago, it wasn't even an option. And we don't need a transaction record of buying stocks and furniture. This is more for people in the finance industry. You could do like, I guess it might be interesting in like a smart contract situation, where like right now what we do is we take the customer's credit card and we say, you want us to pay $11 for that item, you're willing to wait, we put a hold on your credit card. You could probably do that with a smart contract, like, and that would make sense. We didn't build it that way, but the thing about working with emerging technology is that you're always reevaluating and getting input. And so 3 years from now, who knows?
Yeah, and I mean any sort of, if you went back, you're starting this company today, anything you would have changed, or how would you do it differently, or like if you were launching today versus back when you started?
I think I would have built more people. I would have hired more people on the team in the beginning and built a team faster. I stayed solo for way too long. I did all the research like the first 2 years by myself. I would have brought in like 5 friends and been like, hey, I can't pay you guys, but I really would have tried to get them excited and been like, we'll split the equity 5 ways. I didn't have co-founders, and I think I would have done it that way if I had the chance.
Great. Any last? We'll do one more question before we wrap it up.
So I was wondering, you can make a lot of choices, right? Speaking of working, what would you say, what's like one example of you having to give up one opportunity in order to pursue something else, where both looked like really good options? How did you decide?
So I was considering hiring 2 different people. I'll just call them A and B, and they both seemed really confident. And I only had enough capital for one of them. So I had a Google demo day coming up, and I needed something. So I splurged, and I took a little more capital than I should have, and I split it in half. I think I had $5,000. So I gave each person $2,500, both the people that I wanted to hire. And I said, do it 4 days. Google demo days in 4 days. We need a working thing. And I gave them the exact same instructions. And I watched how they behaved. So for example, person A, he was up at 2 in the morning, texting me, slacking, giving constant feedback. Person B was really focused on design. They were like really big on the design, and they kept checking in about colors and spacing. Person A never asked about any of that, and he had different ideas about, he said we should do no design. He's like, 4 days isn't enough for any design. Best that we do it totally plain, and then you won't get judged for design mistakes. So anyway, it's interesting to work with both and see their styles. And so I would say if you have to make a choice, do invest capital in 2 different things and do tiny tests if possible. And it seems hard to like invest that capital and almost waste it on the one that you're not going with. But I was so glad I did that, because I really would have made a mistake with one person, and I never would have known it. I was going with the other person before I did that test, and then I went with the person that I still have today, who's amazing. And sorry, I'm trying not to name them, but that's what I did.
Yeah, and then I always like to wrap it up with sort of how or what can everybody do here if they want to follow you, or how can the community as a whole help Point93 get to the next level?
Thanks. If you wouldn't mind, we have a website, point93.com. If you can fill in your name, you'll be on our mailing list, and that's how I'll keep in contact with you, and I can send you updates. And then when we do launch, you guys can all have a special gift. We're putting everybody who signs up before it's public into a pool. And so we're going to gamify our system here, and we're going to give you points that'll actually be worth dollar amounts. So you'll have free things. It'll be a monetary gift. So thank you all. That'll be for being early adopters. So please do sign up, and you can also come to me after and we can chat.